Okay, the August 10th meeting of the Greenwich Township Land Use Board is called to order. Amy?
This is the regular meeting of the Land Use Board of the Township of Greenwich. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act in that a notice was published in the Express Times and Star Ledger newspapers. The notice was posted on the municipal bulletin board in the Township Administration Building in Greenwich Township, New Jersey, and notice was filed with the Township Clerk.
Roll call.
Mr. Bruce Williams.
Here.
Mr. Mark Scuderi.
Here.
Mr. Paul Bean.
Here.
Mr. Joseph Chicella.
Here.
Mr. Brian Baylor.
Here.
Ms. Kathy Cullen.
Here.
Mr. Gary Hill, I just spoke with, and he is on his way. Mr. Joseph Piama.
Here.
Mr. Jeremy Blunt, asked to be excused tonight. Ms. Andrea Sherlaw has to be excused tonight. Mr. Rocky Stein. Mr. George Bradlaugh asked to be excused tonight. Ms. Dana Parker.
Just talked to her
Bruce-
and she's on her way in.
She's on her way. On behalf of Board Attorney, Mr. John Drill, we have Attorney Rob Simon. Board Engineer, Mr. Mike Finelli.
Here.
Board Planner, Ms. Kendra Lely. Here.
Okay, so I need a motion to excuse
Jeremy, Andrea, George.
Jeremy, Andrea, and George.
Motion.
Second. Go.
Mr. Bruce Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Mark Scuderi.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Bean.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Chicella.
Yes.
Mr. Brian Baylor.
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Cullen.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Piama.
Yes.
Okay, please rise for the flex. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is approval of the minutes from May 11th. Are there any comments or corrections regarding those minutes? If none, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as written. Mark, second. Joe Piami.
Joe actually was not at the meeting.
Oh, so
I'll second.
so Joe Chicillo, second.
Okay.
Please.
I'll let the record show that Gary Hill just walked in. Mr. Bruce Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Mark Scuderi.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Bean.
What were you saying? Oh,
Paul, minutes, you're good?
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Chicallo.
Yes.
Mr. Brian Baylor.
yes.
Ms. Kathy Cullen.
Yes.
Mr. Gary Hill.
For minutes?
Are you okay with the minutes from May 11th?
Yes, I am actually. I did read those.
Andrea and George are absent, and Ms. Dana Parker is not here yet.
Okay, so our first order of business is the adoption of resolution 2023-03. You may recall that's where we basically added on a 1 acre sliver onto the Stecker fields. Are there any questions or comments about it? There is one very small typo corrected on that. Land use instead of land use.
I'll change that before I sign them.
Yeah. Thank you. Any others? Okay, so motion to motion. Second.
Ms. Gary? Mr. Bruce Williams.
Here, oh, yeah.
Mr.
Yes.
Mark Scuderi.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Bean.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Chicallo.
Yes.
Mr. Brian Baylor.
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Cullen.
Yes.
Mr. Gary Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Andrea Sherlaw and Mr. George Bradlaugh are absent.
Okay, now we do have a public hearing for land use board number 2023-01. I'm gonna suggest that we wait about 5 minutes or so until Dana Parker, then we'll have a full board and we'll be good to go then. So if you want to take a short recess here, well, until Dana arrives, we'll do that.
And I want to let the record show that Ms. Dana Parker joined the meeting.
Okay, we're ready to resume.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, learned colleagues, members of the board. My name is David Frank. I'm an attorney at law in Greenwich practice in the state of New Jersey. here tonight on behalf of Metro Tech Electrical Services Company. We're asking you for a D1 use variance as well as minor site plan approval to allow the former automobile dealership located at 164 State Route 173 on property that's two lots and blocks, block 39, lot 4, block 40.01, lot 1, to be repurposed and used as the base of operations for an industrial and commercial electrical contracting company. With me this evening, I will have two witnesses, Vasilios Karabatzos, who is one of the principals of the company, as well as John Hanson, who is both a professional engineer and a professional planner. And he'll be providing engineering as well as planning testimony in support of the two applications that we have before we. My understanding is that your engineer, Mr. Pinelli, has extensively reviewed our submissions, and that they've been found administratively complete. My further understanding is that we've submitted the appropriate notices of hearing to give the board jurisdiction to hear our application. We've received from your professionals the review letter of your planner, Ms. Laley, dated August 1, and most recently the review letter of Mr. Pinelli dated July 10. In addition to that, we received a review letter from your fire marshal. And of course, we're before the county as well. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll call our first witness.
Yeah, let me check whether John usually swears in all the witnesses in the beginning. I can do it any way you want for your.
Let's do it that way. Let's swear in the principal and swear in Mr. Hanson
And our professionals.
and our professionals as well. Just raise your right hand, solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're gonna give tonight's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, so one at a time, state your name and affiliation, please, starting with the applicant's principal and engineer.
Vasilios Karabatzos, principal of the applicant Metro Tech Electrical Services Company.
John Hanson, Hansen, Vice President of Engineering and Land Planning Associates, 140 West Main Street, High Bridge, New Jersey.
Kendra Leary, board planner, LELIE.
Mike Finelli, PE board engineer.
Thank you.
And then we review the notification.
I did, there we go.
They're good.
And just, since this is a use variance, the applicant understands it requires 5 affirmative votes for approval. And that, make sure in terms of the membership of the board that the appointed members, are not participating in this application.
Yeah, so we have Mr. Paul Beam is a township committee person. He's not participating, and Brian is here. Brian, you could practically take a back seat if you would.
Yeah,
Okay.
So we'll have 7 voting members.
correct. Do you understand that, council?
I do, and I want to thank all of you for coming out on an August evening to hear a use variance application, where it is really important to us to have all 7 of you here to listen to it. So I do appreciate that. Good. So with that, I'd like to call Mr. Karabatzos. And in support of his discussion, we have a series of photographs that we pre-marked as exhibits. I shared copies with your planner as well as your attorney. I'm going to distribute them with permission to the board.
You want to mark those?
Yeah.
They're
They're pre-marked, but once you hand them out, then we'll deal with the niceties of identifying them.
Great, thank you.
So, Mr. Frank, what you're handing out looks like what you've done is you've pre-marked a stapled series of photographs with some narrative identified as exhibits A1 through A5. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and is Mr. Karabatzos going to be providing a foundation for
Yes, he is.
this exhibit? Great.
Yep.
Just make sure that all the board members have received a copy of that.
And if there are members of the public who'd like to have a copy, I'm happy to share with you.
It's money handed out.
Great.
Maybe you're
Thank you. To exalted members of the public here, we have to take good care of. Thank you. So let's go, let's. Vasilios, tell us about your company.
My company's name is Metrotech Electrical Service. Well, my name is Vasilios Karabatsos. I'm the principal of the company, or one of the four principals of the company. I'm a former certified public accountant, and I've been an entrepreneur for the past 25 years. Metrotech Electrical Services was founded in 1974 as a medium voltage electrical contracting business, and it's currently headquartered in Easton, Pennsylvania. Our focus is on medium voltage electrical contracting, which simply stated is industrial and commercial electrical systems. So things like substations, transformer installations, switchgear installations, and cable installation work, both underground and on utility poles. And Exhibit A1, the first page of the handout, will show you some pictures of what we do for client sites. And again, the top picture is a substation installation. The bottom left is some underground wire installation, and the bottom right is pole line installation work, and all these are on privately held sites.
Mr. Karabatsos, these are not stock photographs, these
No,
are actually.
these are our
work.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're a unique
Council, can
business.
you just provide a little bit of foundation as to who took these and approximately when they were taken and where are they taken from?
Yes, this, the one at the top, the actual photographer, one of the foremen on the job would have taken them, but the top photograph is the installation of a substation at a 3 million square foot greenhouse in upstate New York that grows tomatoes. And that's tied into the National Grid transmission network. The bottom left picture looks to me like it was taken at Keystone Cement, not far from our office in Easton. And the bottom right picture is a pole line installation that was done at Passaic Valley Sewer Authority in New Jersey. This installation was done after Hurricane Sandy, and this particular picture is of some repair work after a subsequent storm that went past the site.
And Mr. Karabatsos, just to hopefully address the board solicitor's next question. Is it the case that photographs like this are routinely taken by your personnel to document the status of the job? So these are a business record of the projects?
Yeah, and I specifically, at my request, to ensure that we can have some good footage on our website of the type of work we do. We are unique in the type of work we do because we are full service. Design, installation, testing, maintenance, repair, and emergency services work. And that emergency services work applies to clients as well as a support network for utilities. And as it relates to emergencies, we're a regional resource for grid resilience support. So we work directly under master service contracts for utilities such as JCP&L, which serves Warren County, MedEd, PPL, and other utilities from Maine down to Maryland and west to Michigan and beyond. And in fact, right now I've got a team of 30 people in Maryland at Baltimore Gas and Electric, climbing trees in backyards and repairing pole lines after the storms this past Saturday. So we're very active when it comes to grid resilience support. And you'll see some pictures on page 2 or exhibit A2 of emergency services work that we've performed in the past year.
And can you just specify where those particular?
Yeah,
projects are?
the top picture, I recognize it because it was for Central Hudson in Kingston, New York, which is my hometown. And this was about, I don't know, 15 minutes from where my father had no power. So I thought it was a very interesting picture. The bottom right picture, I don't know exactly where we took that, but you can, if you look closely, that's one of our trucks. And this was done, an emergency service call. And we get calls 24/7 support for clients and for clients of clients, et cetera. And the bottom left, I can't recall the name of the company. It's down near Trenton, but this was a phone call that came to us on a Friday afternoon that their entire factory had shut down. They had gone through 3 different contractors that they knew of before they reached us, and none of them had a clue on how to start addressing their problems. So this took about 3 or 4 days to to fix was probably 60 or 70-year-old infrastructure that had gone bust, during production. So, these are all photographs of our teams working, and they're all recently taken. Given the specialty nature of our work, there's maybe a half dozen companies such as ours, in an hour radius of here. So, we're also often hired directly by other electrical contractors in the region to do this type of specialty work we do. So we not only do we work for clients directly, we work for other contractors to support them. We have about 100 direct clients, all of which are large energy users. All the cement plants in the Lehigh Valley, military bases such as West Point and Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland, pharmaceutical companies such as Roche and Johnson Controls, educational centers such as Raritan Valley Community College and Princeton University, utilities such as American Water. I mean, it's on and on. We've got a pretty diverse client base. I'll stop there, and I was going to go to a few other sections if there's any other questions on our operations. Okay. Our intended use, we're seeking to repurpose this now vacant site as the base of our operations and administrative headquarters of our company. We propose to use the facility in a manner of ways. One, company offices in the existing showroom and existing administrative offices, an equipment repair area in the existing auto repair facility at the back of the building that exists right now. Parking area for employee vehicles, a parking area for service vehicles, utility vehicles, and trailers when they return from job sites, either to be serviced or restocked, etc. And an outdoor storage area for electric distribution equipment inventory. And I'll get into that in a little bit. All of the parking and storage areas will be on existing paved and impervious surfaces on the site that exists right now. This site's attractive to us for a number of reasons. One, the existing physical development of the site serves 4 key criteria. The offices already exist in the front section of the existing facility. We can store materials and equipment and conduct equipment repair in the existing rear section where automobile repair was done when there was an automobile dealership. There's ample outdoor parking area to park large service vehicles, utility vehicles, and trailers to be serviced and restocked when they return from sites. And the proposed outdoor storage area gives us a place to support our operations, and I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. Because it already contains these offices and repair and storage areas, there's minimal alterations needed to implement our use of the site. And our use is not really dependent on highway visibility, and we'll have little to no public traffic, just the employees that work there. But it's an exceptional location because it provides highway access to serve our regional customer base. The location at the intersection of 173 and 78 allows us to get on the highway and get quickly to client sites. And since it's so located at the outer edge of the township, we have immediate access to the highway and don't have to travel through town and through smaller roadways. We have 3 types of employees: administrative, support, and field staff. About 16 to 20 administrative employees, depending on who's working from home, who will work in the proposed existing office space within the existing building. Approximately 5 additional employees will work at the site maintaining and repairing equipment in the existing auto repair shop. And the rest of our staff, we are a union employer. So our IBW electricians work at job sites. Our field staff is between 40 to 60 people, depending on the scale of work we have at any given time. Substantially all of their work is outdoors, and they typically report from the office to the job site and back home. And their reporting to the administrative offices is to fill out paperwork, pick up a check, what have you, but very little interaction with the office.
So just to clarify, your field personnel don't typically come to this site
No,
to start their workday or to finish their workday.
I'm not saying they never come to the site, but by and large, they go from home to a job site and then back home at the end of the day.
Thanks.
We do have a fleet of vehicles. We have about 28 pickups and vans. And most are assigned to personnel who take them home to jobs and back home daily. About 5 delivery vehicles, which are flatbeds, a crane truck, et cetera. 8 digger utility vehicles, 12 bucket vehicles, and 26 trailers, which are pole trailers, reel trailers, specialty equipment trailers, et cetera. So if you look at exhibit A3, which is the 3rd page of what I handed out, that'll give you an example of the bucket trucks and digger trucks to be parked in the designated area that we have for utility vehicles. And then if you look at exhibit A4, it'll give you examples of trailers that are parked that will be parked in the designated area for trailers. And I show you an example of a real trailer, a pulling trailer, and a material trailer.
How many trailers you say?
Approximately 26.
That's total, all.
So, yeah, total.
All of the different types.
Yeah, and it's important to note that we have laydown yards where these trailers. I wouldn't think that all 26 would ever be at the office. We have laydown yards at West Point, we have laydown yards at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, we have a laydown yard in Philadelphia, and then at client sites, you know, we often have laydown yards, so everything gets mobilized and stays there during job performance. We intend to designate areas for parking of vehicles by type, and those will be shown to you shortly by the next witness. And while there's certainly going to be vehicles, whether large or pickup trucks or what have you, at the location at any given time, we strive to ensure that all of our vehicles are on the road because they don't really make us money sitting in a parking lot. So we like to get them repaired out the door, restocked correctly, and back out to client sites, and you know, and doing what they should be doing. We do intend or do seek to have an area for outside storage. The bulk of our work is exterior work. It's important to have equipment on hand, both for contract work and, more importantly, for emergency services work. We plan to utilize the designated outside storage areas for equipment of certain types, transformers and switchgear, utility poles, wire reels, and other smaller types of equipment that get installed typically on utility poles or when installing transformers. And if you go to exhibit A5, which is the final page of the pictures that I've showed you, this is a picture you know, actually of the stack of utility poles we currently have right now in Easton. A transformer. This particular one happens to be just under 6 feet high. And it's kind of this is among the larger transformers that we would have on site. I could just tell by looking at the number on here. And this is a wire spool. And typically we keep some wire on hand to serve emergencies when you get called in the middle of the night and somebody's wires are burned up at Raritan Valley Community College or something of the like. You need to have the ability to service those clients with that equipment. It's either procured new, in the case of the transformers, remanufactured from a client or from client sites that have upgraded, from which we bring this in, send it back out to get reconditioned, and then bring it back out to new client sites to service their needs. We do not store scrap metals or anything of that nature. This stuff is very expensive. We don't make money having it sit around, so we don't like it to stay there forever. A lot of money tied up in this equipment, and our best business case is to find a home for it as fast as possible. Our hours of operation for the office are typically 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our office workers come at the start of the day and leave at the end of the day. Our shop staff that might come an hour earlier, leave an hour earlier. But typically it's an 8 to 5 office environment. Deliveries can come throughout the day. We can have as little as 0 deliveries in a day or as many as 10 or so. They're typically deliveries to the office are typically made by truck, UPS or FedEx or straight delivery trucks from an electrical distribution house. We occasionally get delivery from a full-size tractor trailer or vehicles of the like, but it's rare. And most deliveries are for things we keep on hand. Safety equipment, helmets, fuses, spare parts, screws, things like that we constantly rotate through And it's important to have them on hand and not be waiting for them to be delivered. Larger deliveries specifically for jobs, it's most efficient to have them delivered by the manufacturers we procure from directly to a job site. It's incredibly expensive to have a crane, lift a piece of equipment, drop it, put it back on a truck, deliver it to a job site, et cetera. It's much more efficient for the larger stuff to just get delivered there. As far as the facility itself, it's our intention to invest in this property. Our plan proposes to install a security fence surrounding the accessible portions of the premises. We plan to remove an existing 5-foot fence along the Route 173 frontage and propose to install an 8-foot tall black chain link fence with black security slats. We plan to have one automatic gate and one manual gate at the entrances that are along Voorhees Road. And as set forth in the review letter from the fire chief, we'll install a Knox box system and provide keys to all the locked access points, as well as meet the department's requirements for the Knox box access system. We're proposing substantial landscaping to both screen the site from view of passersby and to enhance the appearance of the site. We're amenable to coordinating the buffer plantings with the board's planner. We've already gone ahead and replaced the septic tanks that had collapsed from neglect at the facility when it stopped being used as an automobile dealership. And that septic had become inoperable. So we've done some construction to kind of get things back into usable order. That was through Warren County and a local septic vendor. For grounds and aesthetics, the property had gone empty and neglected for some time. So, we intend to repair the grounds that have decayed, repair the damaged pavement, update the sidewalks, trim overgrown vegetation, install new landscaping around the building, basically make it look good. We'll restrike the parking lot as set forth in the review letter from the fire chief. We'll keep the layout the same and ensure that vehicles, trucks, and equipment are not parked or stored in the lanes of travel, so that his department can gain access to all sides of the building as needed. There's currently 3 existing signs for the auto dealership. We're amenable to a single sign in accordance with the township's ordinance. In other words, removing the 3 signs and just having one. We'll remove the service entrance sign, on the overhang of the building since it's no longer applicable. And we'll add any on-site directional or wayfinding signage where appropriate or recommended. We plan on updating the lighting. Right now, it's got stadium lighting that looks like MetLife Stadium. It's appropriate for a car dealership and not really appropriate for our use. We'll update the existing parking lot lighting and ensure it complies with the ordinance. And we'll install building perimeter security lighting and motion detector lighting that is also appropriate with the ordinance. We plan to do exterior building improvements, so clean the exterior, make it presentable, and even paint the building to a more neutral color. Right now, it sticks out like a car dealership. It doesn't need to for our purposes. Other improvements set forth in the review letters, fully screen the refuse disposal area and include a 6-foot fence and gate. Bicycle parking and providing designated loading area as set forth on the site plans. The building and its interior needs work. It's been neglected. Repair the roof, replace rotted insulation, doors, garage doors, etc., and reconfigure the office area to our needs. And then lastly, both board professionals have indicated that it would be appropriate to consolidate the 2 lots. And we're obviously amenable to doing that merger as a condition of approval.
I think that's Vasilis direct. So if anybody has any questions for him.
Any board members, any questions?
With regards to, it's obviously gonna be although not intended, there's gonna be times where it's gonna be a 24/7 access for emergencies. Some of the equipment that you have that you showed pictures of here, the generators and things of that nature that you're gonna have on site. What type of controls do you have to minimize the noise of loading those things on trailers and so on and so forth in the middle of the night when they have to be transferred?
Typically, the emergency services work. Most of our staff, like our emergency staff that's equipped to do emergency service, go directly from their homes, to those sites. They have vehicles that are loaded up with equipment. in those cases where we have to go to the office to get, 20 feet of wire to connect something, a special wire or what have you, that won't make much noise. And I don't anticipate, and it really hasn't happened for us, to be loading heavy equipment or poles in the middle of the night. The middle of the night stuff is less intrusive than the stuff during the day. So while I can't say that nobody will ever be coming in at 2 a.m. to pick up something from the warehouse area or what have you, it's not a lot of people and it's not a lot of vehicles, so it's in and out.
Okay. And is the primary entrance still gonna be off of Voorhees Road?
Yes, there are 2 entrances right now from the former auto dealership. We plan on, if you're driving off 173, plan on making the first entrance one of those automatic gates, and the second entrance manual gate. And that second entrance is the entrance which we would designate as the delivery entrance for any vehicles, UPS, FedEx, or any other delivery vehicles.
And then my last question is, are you actually relocating from your Easton facility to here, or is this gonna be an additional?
Our intent is to make this the headquarters. We have office space at another, at the site of a partner company of ours, but we don't have the type of facility space to operate from. So we've grown very rapidly, and it's not a place that we can continue to call a headquarters.
Where in Easton, I'm sorry, where in Easton?
On Northwood Avenue, off where Bushkill Creek and Northwood Avenue.
Okay.
It's at the site of the Bellier Power Systems at 2200 Northwood Avenue.
So would you still operate out of Easton or pull everything to here?
We have a lease there through the middle of next year, so we would slowly, move everything over, but it's our intention to modify the showroom space into an open office plan, the same way we have now. And there's a second floor mezzanine area in the former automobile showroom, and it's set up into 2 conference rooms and some offices. And we would continue to use that as, training and areas where people could work. It's a big office space, so it's never say never, but it's gonna be hard to fill it, with bodies. So it's a perfect size office space for what we need.
And for the storage of the transformers and the reels and the telephone poles, this is for emergencies. What's the quantity to be stored in? Is
I
it
mean,
outdoors?
That's an actual view of our current, we maybe 20, 25 poles on hand. Transformers could be up to 10, down to 0. It really depends, sometimes they'll get delivered and they have to wait, for if they're not delivered directly to the site, because the site's not ready to accept them, they'll get delivered to us. And then when the construction of a site, by another contractor, is ready to accept the medium voltage portion of the work, we have a crane truck, we'll lift them onto a crane truck, or we'll have another crane truck come and get them, and bring them over to the site. Same thing with reels, some reels would stay there, I think we've got maybe 8 or 10 reels right now in a designated reel area, which covers the voltage classes of the wire that we need to support our clients. And then it is possible that we would receive reels that would go to client sites if they weren't delivered there directly, but the idea is to get them to the client site immediately and get them installed.
And is this all stored outside?
It's outside equipment, yeah, I wanted to show you pictures of the type of equipment that has an outdoor storage effect to it. It's very difficult to bring it inside.
Yeah, and will you show us where on the property that you're?
Well, we'll have our engineer present all that to you now.
Thank you.
I have one other question real quick, this is actually more, is it feasible at all to have an entrance off of 173 as opposed to Voorhees Road because of the proposed affordable housing that's been going in off of Voorhees Road also?
It's possible, obviously,
I know
they
it's
have 2
limited
existing
site because of
openings
the
now,
grade.
so it's a lot simpler to use what's there, but they'd have to get a, obviously, DOT access permit, I mean, there's no reason they couldn't.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how busy that could get because of the affordable housing going in there.
And to your point, wasn't there an issue with the car dealership and getting tractor trailers in and unload? They were unloading in the street. Do you remember that? They couldn't get into the parking
The
lot
car
and all
trailers.
that, so if you
The
have
car
tractor trailers coming in.
Yeah,
So, our engineer, we will show you that we've done turning templates and we can show you how that'll work.
Thank you.
We thought about it.
but
Two things, I may be going crazy, but I thought there was testimony in the previous application within our, about that 5-foot fence.
Yes, it was.
That was
DOT.
actually part of the highway system,
Mhm.
and they wanted to replace that fence, and the highway
And they wouldn't let them,
people wouldn't let them.
right? And that's why it's still there. A beautiful fence.
I would guess that fence is there for security reasons, to stop like a kid at the auto dealership from, trying to walk.
No, it
across
wasn't, it was an Interstate 78 fence,
DOT wouldn't
Oh,
let them.
DOT fence,
Yeah.
that's why. And so it was part of the interstate infrastructure, and they wouldn't allow Vinart to remove that fence to put in a more appealing. That was what.
I
we heard at
remember
the
that
time.
as well.
So.
I'm not looking at
Just
the
throwing it out
survey,
there.
to identify whether it's on the right of way.
it was a very peculiar situation.
Okay,
But it was confirmed, as the chairman just explained, that it was a DOT mandated fence. Uh,
well, if we're not allowed to take it down, we won't take it down.
But I yeah.
We're proposing a fence, I think that, and we'll see it on the plans, it's substantially closer to the parking lot than the current fence. We figured it was an aesthetic improvement, I think, to get rid of that thing.
Well, and I would agree.
So how about we leave it if,
I'm just-
if it's lawful for us to remove the fence, we'll remove it, and if not, we won't.
Now, you didn't submit a lighting plan per se yet, but if I understand what you said, that now, right now you have on the berms on at least two sides there, some floodlights, lighting.
MetLife
that up.
Stadium, yeah.
Yeah, and so if I heard you correctly, you would be removing those?
Yeah, I mean, it's our understanding they wouldn't meet the township's,
They don't.
ordinance for us to maintain them, so we can remove it.
And so I believe there's also up lighting presently, ground mounted lighting is
Yeah.
pointed up.
That's the
gonna
way.
go.
Yeah, that's what we're
That
talking
goes
about.
away.
And there's some parking lot, more typical pole lighting.
There's lighting in the parking lot. I think there's two or three poles,
Okay.
along one of the parking edges.
Is that gonna remain?
That's our intention for now, yeah. I mean, we would propose installing and we would show it, run it by the board, security lights at the edges of the building with motion sensors or what have you.
So I don't know if this is something we covered later on or not, are we basically saying that you'd work with the planner to come up with something?
Yeah.
A lighting plan that would be suitable and meet township requirements?
The lighting plan and the landscape.
And it would be, should this receive an approval, there should be a night lighting test as a condition as well, which I did last time.
And that would be for
And
spillage,
fact.
that'd be for spillage, Mr. Finelli?
Yes,
Great, sure.
Any questions for the professionals?
yeah, okay, I have a little laundry list here for you. You said in your testimony initially, that something to the effect of, I don't know how I actually put it, something like, well, we think the site is suitable and it's a good site for us and whatnot. Aren't you operating there already?
We have,
I mean, it sure looks that way.
I anticipated this question. We've been doing a lot of cleanup work there. We did work to reestablish, take out the old septic system, reinstall the septic system. So
Do you have
Brad-
approval from the health department, by the way? Do you
yes, I
have-
do.
Okay.
I can
that should be-
present that.
You should send that, John. I assume you have it.
Okay, we got it. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stuff we've been cleaning out of there. So we haven't been operating there in the operating sense. I will admit that it probably looks like there's a lot of activity there, but
But
there's a
it
lot,
sure does.
there's a lot of cleaning going on.
Okay.
And I know right now, one of my business partners has a motorhome that started stalling right as he was passing the building, parked it in the parking lot. Looks like there's a motorhome in the parking lot. So it's our intention is to beautify, is to change the aesthetic of this place so that it's it's shielded as much as it can be.
tend to repaint the building into a more neutral color, put landscaping and, you know,
Per the things
basically
you
make
said
it
in your testimony.
into a
Okay.
normal operation.
Okay, because that's one of the questions I've had since this was submitted and we did our first site inspection a good month and a half ago or whatever it might have been. And clearly, there was a lot of trucks, there was a lot of activity at the site, and then I'm saying to myself, okay, how did these guys get the approval to operate? So you're technically not operating.
No, no.
Okay, so okay, that's a good clarification, I understood, all right. Just so I understand this a little bit better, Kathy asked about the materials on site and loading, unloading and so forth, so you don't. Tell me if I'm right with this, you only stock transformers and electrical equipment that you need based upon an as-needed basis. You don't have 10 transformers waiting just in stock kind of thing.
I mean, is it possible to have a few in stock at any given time? Absolutely. I can't tell you it would never happen. But they're very expensive. You know, I mean, the types of the transformer I showed you here is probably $100,000, you know, piece of metal. It makes more sense to get it onto a client site as fast as possible.
Okay, so you don't have an excess of inventory typically. You'll have some extra parts, stuff,
Yeah,
but like some
you'll
reels, the wire, I assume, things like that.
You'll see like, you know, if you look at utility poles, you'll see like these, you know, spacers that hold that between the wires, that hold things. We have bins of those, you know, you rotate through that stuff very quickly. And, you know, it puts you at a disadvantageous position if you're waiting for supply chain, you know, to catch up with having that equipment to install.
So the stuff you go through quicker, you tend to have in stock. The more specialty items you are on an order, but okay, and
Yeah,
they
and if you
typically
get-
go to the site directly versus coming here if you can pull it off.
But for a perfect example right now is, you know, at our facility in Easton, there's some reels there that are designated for a New Jersey Transit job. So we're doing work for New Jersey Transit and the installation of, you know, of wire. New Jersey Transit's not ready for us. The wire we ordered was on 26-week lead time. So it got here after 26 weeks. They're not ready for us. They don't want us to bring it there. We have to hold on to it until they're ready. So those are the situations where stuff will be coming and going.
Okay, maybe the lighting, thank you for addressing that up front. That saved a lot of time and discussion, because the lighting clearly is
It's for an auto
totally
dealership.
out of compliance
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
okay. Last question about the fence. And I'm sure Mr. Hansen's gonna talk about the reports and compliance with the outstanding comment from Kendra and myself and so forth, okay. But the fence, and we put it right in our report, 8 foot, which is obviously a variance, 8-foot fences are not permitted typically. And then with the slats, obviously, the intent is for security purposes, I would assume, correct?
And for visual as for people
Okay.
going by.
How critical is that? I mean, the height and the slats.
I mean, I'll address the height first. A 4-foot fence or the one that's there right now.
Well, yeah, no, 4,
Yeah,
it
it's
would
not-
be, like a 6.
You know. Even 6 is about the height of me. It's not the end of the world, but 8 seemed like very appropriate. There's a lot of area especially along 173 where that area, it's about 50, the current fence along the property line, the DOT fence, it's about 25 feet from the curb. We're gonna be another 25 feet from the curb, about 50 feet from the curb of 173. A lot of areas it slopes down. So, you know, an 8-foot fence starts looking like a 5-foot fence when you're looking at it from the highway. A shorter one would be really short.
And you propose black and black. Is that what you?
We're open to
I think-
suggestions.
Yeah, I think I suggested that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that if they're putting a chain link fence in, the black it will recede into the landscape and
For the fence, but the slats
the slats.
okay,
Yeah, same.
if you recommended it, it's good with me.
As far as the equipment that's being stored, I'm assuming these aren't being stacked. I mean, you're not stacking
No.
transformers on top of each other or the spools.
No, we wouldn't be, I don't, this stuff is not, we're not, storing towers or anything of substantial height.
So like the height that I see here in the pictures is, what would you say, anywhere between 6 and 8 feet?
That
height?
one's 6 feet, because I walked up next to it after I took the picture, and it's about at my height, so I guess
The
it's 6 feet.
transformer?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
the reel's probably 5 feet, that reel right there. And then the poles, the stack of the poles are probably around this high.
Okay, thank you.
What's the, I guess, tallest height of any outdoor storage equipment?
Have I seen a transformer at 7 or 8 feet? Yes, it's rare. Probably 6 to 8 feet. I mean, I can't imagine, I can't think of a situation where we've had anything that's much taller than me sticking my hand up. I mean, I'm just trying to visualize our facility where we're at now and all the stuff that's come and gone over the years. Yeah, I mean,
This,
8 feet
this
high.
one on.
That would never be on our site. That thing weighs, that particular one probably weighs close to 100 tons. And that was delivered to that site on a 42-wheel tractor trailer. We have zero, we don't stock those. We install them, we don't stock.
How does it work with the bucket trucks then? There is a parking spot for some of your utility vehicles. In that particular instance, who's coming to pick them up and when do they pick them up?
Yeah, it's vehicles a job might be over where bucket trucks were used, and they'll get brought to the site to get restocked. Go into a mechanic's bay and get checked. We check our vehicles all the time. We have a union electrical workforce, so if you lose a day from a vehicle going down, it's very expensive. So our protocol is to, on a very regular basis, they're all GPS connected and monitored, for engine lights and all this other stuff. Remember, when they're running all day long. So there's a lot of wear and tear on them. So they'll get brought in, restocked with equipment, and ideally get back out on the road. I mean, right now I've got 22 bucket trucks and diggers at Baltimore Gas and Electric. That's the bulk of our, of everything we have is down there, and pickup trucks, all down in Maryland. They might come back to Easton and sit there for a night and then go back, it depends. I think Sunday they're getting released. So they probably won't go to a job site Sunday. They'll get back to the shop, sit there, and then the next day or two, go to the next job site that needs trucks.
And then typically when it goes to the job site, depending on how long that job is, whoever is using that vehicle, taking it back and forth from wherever they live or.
Most of the guys take it, if an employee is not already assigned a pickup truck or a van or a vehicle that's already stocked with stuff, and they're driving, they're a driver for equipment, they'll leave it there at the site and go home from there, or take it home at times. I mean, I have some employees that actually drive the bucket trucks back and forth if they're close to, within a reasonable radius of where they'd be working.
Understood, thank you.
I have a question about those bucket trucks. When they're parked, are the buckets stored up or down?
A lot of organizations store them up. We've never stored them up. We lock them at night, we just have never seen the safety need to store them up, but there are a lot of, if you drive down 78, there's some contractors that store all of them up in the air. It's not something we do.
What's the number of trucks that would typically be, they're getting service, they're getting stocked, whatever, that would be sitting there? Is it 2 trucks, 20 trucks?
I mean, it really depends. It could be 0. Like right now, it could, we've got all our bucket trucks away. Could be a half dozen or, 10 for one night and then back out the door. It really depends. And that's what makes this, for contractors such as us, and we didn't come up with this. We've seen other contractors that have gone into former automobile dealership spaces. It hits all those criteria that I mentioned. It's, it provides a mechanics and servicing bay right on site, provides an ample spot to come in and come out. you know, and you can have your offices, you know, in the same area, so, it's a hard question to answer. It could be 0, it could be a dozen.
And how many mechanics do you have?
I have,
do that?
I have one full-time mechanic and one part-time mechanic.
Thanks.
Are any repairs, anticipated to be done outside?
No, you might test, you know, you might lift a bucket to, you know, you can't lift a bucket inside. You know, so if somebody repairs a hydraulic line or something like that, and they'll take it outside and they'll lift it, but that's more like testing the functionality of the vehicle. That's the only thing I can think of for quote unquote repair being done outside is that kind of stuff you can't do indoors.
And you talked about the fact that this property is appropriate for you for a number of reasons. Have you looked at other properties in the area before arriving at this one?
Yes, I can't give you a list off the top of my head, but I probably could find, you know, speak to one of my business partners and go through it. It's hard to find all of those pieces with reasonable proximity to get on the highway. So that's what's unique about this space. You know, you can find warehouse space, but it's not gonna have a pre-built, you know, area for bringing in, you know, trucks for, you know, inside work. They may not have enough adequate office space. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why things would and would not work. We've seen some things in Pennsylvania, maybe 20 to 30 minutes outside of Easton, like if we look around our office and we just keep going out and out, but then we're getting towards toward pretty far away from our core customer base, which is primarily, you know, we do a lot of work in New Jersey. Most of our staff is with local Union 102. So North Jersey to Central Jersey and the whole top half of New Jersey, we're constantly everywhere there. So this is really effective to hop on the highway, get into Pennsylvania clients and hop on the highway and get to New Jersey clients.
Sure. Have you had any experiences with complaints from your Easton location due to any outdoor activity?
No.
I'm sure you're aware of the 78, 173, 22 interchange, if you will, there's 3 of the 4 ramps exist.
Yeah,
Which leaves the 78
west
to 173 east as the one that you have to take the jug handle. How often, and I know you can't estimate the movement of your trucks, how often that movement would occur. But do you see that as problematic from a queuing standpoint because sometimes that light takes quite a few cycles for vehicles to get through?
I mean, I can't imagine it's gonna be, you know, a problem. Again, it's very rare that we'll have, you know, a whole volume of trucks coming at the same time or what have you. It's very random and sporadic, you know, coming back and forth. Again, our biggest interest is to make sure that these things, to the extent they can be, they're not always on a job site, but you know, you make money when they're being utilized. You can charge a client when they're on the site in action. And that's the reason to have them.
Mr. Finelli, I remind you that Vasilios is a CPA. He's all about those numbers.
Being smart about the use of your equipment and your manpower, there's nothing wrong with that.
You got some more on your list?
No, as a matter of fact, I'm good for now.
Andrew? We have some members of the public here. Does anyone from the public have questions for this witness?
Yeah, I'm Tim
Okay,
Drake.
could you stand up and identify yourself, please?
My name's Tim Drake. I live right behind there. I see my house on his computer right here. The only concern I really have about this, because so far so good, is there's a breaker on a telephone pole in their lot back by the gas tanks that goes down to my house. And when I lose power, which it seems to happen a lot lately, JCP&L has to go into your parking lot and go up and hit that breaker. I don't know anything about breakers, or that's all As a matter of fact, you guys do that stuff.
They might very well be the ones who.
What's a break on this one? It's JCP&L, cause I talked to the guy and I tell him there's a breaker up there on the pole. And then he drives up there and he hits it and I got power again.
Yeah.
Now, if you put locked gates there, how's he gonna get in there? You know, I'm gonna be stuck without power, I'm gonna be calling your guys like, hey, could you go to your, you know?
Yeah, I mean, well, I have two responses to that. One is we should probably talk to the local JCP&L office and perhaps give them access to the site as well. The second one is, we've seen there currently is a pole line that goes to that right there, going right through the trailer parking lot. We think it's completely unsafe and ridiculous, and we were gonna petition JCP&L either to move it or bring that thing underground. I don't know how that affects the breaker that you're talking about at the transformer, but we'll just have to ask.
Right, because cause I've lived there 25 years now. The first 20, I never lost power, but now it seems like I'm losing power on every other big storm. You know, and then I gotta call JCP&L, and wait, and then they finally come, and I'm like, up there in the parking lot, there's a pole, and he goes up, and boom, I have power again. You know, so I don't know if that was something installed more recently, if it has anything to do with you guys, or it's just for
We
me.
can look, we haven't asked them, or if this is the first I've heard about it, but it's.
Right, because I was thinking, well, since you guys do that, just move it down to the pole at my house.
It's fine.
Then you could just like go up there and hit it or put it low enough where I could go out.
I don't think they're gonna let you do that, but yeah, I see the
It
point.
says, but you know, that's my only concern really, because I don't wanna be sitting there and JCP&L goes, well, we can't get in there, you don't have any power. You know, and then who knows when I get power back.
Alright,
I
alright,
mean,
thanks.
And Mr. Drake, what's your address?
100 Springtown Road,
Thank you.
which is my driveway, it's not a road anymore. It messes everybody up, but, because I actually live off of Still Valley, but I guess my driveway used to be a road.
I can't guarantee that somebody will be there at all times when power goes out, but I'm amenable to working with JCP&L to find a solution.
Well, yeah, cause that's the only reason I came, cause I read the letter and it's like, I don't care if you put up a fence or do landscaping, and it can't be any worse than the last guy, they never cut the grass, it got this high and, yeah. And, I mean, you say nobody's doing anything up there, but see a lot of stuff going on, but so far so good, I mean, there hasn't been any noise, I'm not worried about noise, I'm not worried about the lights, I'm not worried about you storing your trucks or any of that stuff. I'm just worried about my power and accessibility to get in there. That's why I came, so they would know that there's, an
Alright, well, we appreciate it.
Mr. Solicitor, we're amenable to a condition that we have to work with JCP&L to assure that he has either power or JCP&L has access to the service.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Right, cause I'm like, you could give me a key, I promise I'll never go in. I'll just give it to the guy when he shows up, but.
That could be one answer, but it puts you out. So we'll talk to JCP&L first and
Right.
yeah, we can work
Cause,
out.
I can't guarantee it's always the same guy or.
Alright,
Okay.
alright, thank you.
So do I have to stay to listen to the rest of it?
You don't. You don't.
Nice to meet you.
You're not our prisoner.
But, yeah, that's like I say, I'm just concerned about that, can't miss too much TV, Food will go bad.
Bruce, I have one other question.
All right.
when we're done.
Yeah, Jared?
Okay,
So based on what you said, where all your trucks are now down in Bozewood. So what is the vehicle count on your eastern property right now then?
5 or 6 trucks right now.
Big trucks?
A digger, a long flatbed, like a delivery truck is one of the 5 delivery vehicles that I had here. And I believe our crane truck is parked right now at the New Jersey site. Yeah, 2 large trucks, at the Easton site. There's 2 vans and 1 pickup right now. When I left the office today, that's what I saw.
And what's sitting here in New Jersey?
I haven't driven by it today. I know that there's a bucket truck sitting there and a crane truck, a knuckle boom crane truck. But I don't know if there's any other vehicles. And my business partner's motorhome that broke down in front of the, right as he was passing the interchange there, and he decided the good place to put it was in the parking lot there.
So I go by there frequently and there's a lot of equipment all the time so far. For months it's been there. Big trucks. And a lot of them park under there's like an overhang connecting buildings. There's a lot of stuff going on and that's all for the cleanup.
We're not operating our business out of there. It's very possible, because I'm out there every day right now, that things are being parked there and then moved back to Easton or moved back to a job site. But from an operational standpoint, we haven't been, it's been an inadvertent parking lot. Versus, our operations are absolutely still at 2200 Northwood Avenue in Easton.
I can only imagine how much money they're saving not crossing the bridge.
That might be part of it.
work is happening in New Jersey, why cross the bridge and pay that toll? You don't have to.
All right, so I don't see any other questions. So you have another witness then?
Maybe, yeah. John, you want to talk to us?
Yeah.
Mike,
Great.
all good here?
You're good now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you.
So, Mr. Hanson, would you please give us the benefit of your professional qualifications?
Sorry.
Sure, John Hanson, Hansen. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering, 1992, Virginia Tech. Since that time, been practicing civil engineering here in New Jersey. Been a licensed professional engineer for about 24 years, a licensed professional planner for about 23 years. Testified in about 1,500 or so cases like this for site plan subdivision over those times. I've represented about a dozen boards through Morris, Warren, Hunterdon County, Union County. My licenses are in good standing, and I've been to the site. I've reviewed your ordinance and reviewed the past resolutions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that you accept him as an expert in the field of civil engineering and
Qualification.
professional planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So what I thought I would do is just, a lot's been said about the site already, so I'll try to be brief and, get to the high points. I want to just bring you through the existing conditions on the site, talk about the proposed conditions. I do have an exhibit that I'll introduce and talk through. And then we'll take a break if you have questions, and then talk about the planning testimony that's appropriate in this case. So what I have here on the board is the set of plans that were submitted with the application. They're part of the packet. Would you like me to,
Look, I don't think you have to mark it, John, but why don't you just identify the plan set in terms of the last revision dates and make sure that the board members have the latest revisions.
Sure, so it's the plan prepared by my office, signed by Rob Benedetto, the 9-sheet set. And the last revision is revision number 4. It's revised July 25th of this year. My set shown. That's what my set shows. Good. So just a couple of the particulars here. As was said, this tract consists of 2 lots, block 40.01, lot 1. That's the lot that you see in the upper right-hand corner of sheet 2. That's the corner lot. It runs on both Route 173 and Bloody Road. It consists of 3.83 acres. And it's located in the B2 business zone. Block 39, lot 4 is the adjacent property to the left of the lot I just spoke of. That also has frontage on 173. That is in the RCD zone, so the zone boundary runs between the 2 lots. And it also fronts on the road that the gentleman in the audience was just talking about. That's Still Valley Road, which is in the bottom left-hand corner of the property of the plan. And so Still Valley Road is, as the gentleman said, it's a driveway. It's about 12 foot wide. It really doesn't have access. In fact, it has a do not enter sign that prohibits vehicles from coming in there. So the surrounding properties are also in the RCD zone, across from Voorhees here. Across 173, property is in the RO zone. That's the research office zone. So the property in its existing conditions, as we've been talking about, lot 1 is developed. It's developed with the former automobile dealership, essentially 2 buildings with a breezeway between it. Coverage that amounts to about 63.55%, where the zone allows for 60%. And then we have, the RCD portion of the property of the tract, which is lot 4, that has only access through lot 1. So it has no access from 173, no access from the back. The property really is unconstrained for the most part. There's no wetlands, no, real steep slopes. It is located in the planning area. The Highlands, line runs right in this location, right along Still Valley Road. So Powhatan is in the preservation area. We're in the planning area, but, as far as the Highlands website shows that the plan conformance is pending. So the Highlands really doesn't have jurisdiction in any area. But there is a stream, I believe it's called the Powhatan Creek, the C1 stream, located in the southwest corner of the property, far away from the developed area. It's in a location where there's an existing stormwater management basin. It has a 300-foot riparian buffer, still far away from the existing improvements and anything that we want to do. So anything that we're going to do is not going to require any kind of DEP approval or any of that way. So a couple other particulars I wanted to note. Some of the existing nonconformities on the track, because I think it's important. We're going to talk about some of the mitigation that we're going to do with these existing nonconformities. So the lot size in the B2 zone, the minimum is 5 acres. We're at 3.83 acres with lot 1. There's a minimum front yard setback of 75 feet, and we're at 74.41, just shy of that from the setback to 173. We have a minimum rear yard requirement in the zone of 50 feet, and we're at 46.09 feet. I talked about the maximum impervious coverage, site slightly over at 63.55%. Transition area buffer, Ms. Lely talks about that in her report. We'll talk about what we're planning on doing. But right now, there's a 35-foot to residential use or zone, and it's an existing non-conforming condition. Although we do have quite a distance and some significant landscaping here between the gentleman that spoke before. His home's about 350 feet away from the developed portion of our property. And there's also some evergreen trees in this location. They're probably upwards of 40 feet at least. So I think there's a substantial buffer there now. We talked a lot about the fence. The fence out there is, I measured it, it's kind of varies between 4 and 6 feet, so it's non-conforming because it's over 4 in your zone. And I agree, it's a ratty looking fence, doesn't have that top rail on it, so it's kind of blowing in the breeze and, not a great situation. The lighting, we talked about the lighting and my client is agreeable to, correcting some of the non-conformities there. Specifically, it's really along the frontage here of Voorhees Road and 173. You'll notice there's some ground mounted lights that shine up and have sky glow. There's also some pole mounted lights on the utility poles out in 173. There's quite a lot of light up there that is focused down in the building that really doesn't need to be there. But we do want to keep the interior of the lot that has the, your typical site lights with the lights that are flush or parallel to the ground that focus downward. Those are necessary for safety. So we do need to keep those and keep those on. Parking lot setback, that's another existing non-conforming situation, but the parking lot's not supposed to extend into the front yard any more than the front yard setback, which is 75 feet in this location. So it's about 43 to 45 feet in non-compliance currently. That's been that way since 1987. So for lot 4, again, there's a couple of non-conformities. This is the RCD zone property. The existing use was obviously approved in variance for parking for connection with the automotive dealership. So that's an existing non-conforming condition per se. The maximum impervious coverage for that zone is 10%, and we've calculated the millings and the gravel area to be about 12.82%. So our proposal, I'm gonna just mark this because this was not in our packet. So what number should I
So
want?
we're gonna mark that as A6, I believe. And just put in today's date, please. And just identify it for the record.
So we've called here as a parking and outdoor storage exhibit prepared by my firm, the colorized exhibit, and what you see here is an aerial photo dated 2020. And it's got superimposed on it some color and some of the landscaping that we'll propose, so that you can see, you know, the thought process of how the applicant wants to operate the site. So just to set it up here, this is a little different than the one I just showed you. This is turned on the other way. So the bottom of the property is 173, on left-hand side is Voorhees Road. So the color coded here, what we've shown here in yellow is parking area for smaller service vehicles along Voorhees Road frontage there. The pink color is the area for utility vehicles in that location at the bottom left-hand corner. We have our orange area is the overflow parking if needed for job mobilization. We colored this area, although we probably didn't need to, but we wanted to show that that's currently parking of vehicles from the automotive dealership, but that's supposed to be left vacant so that we can circulate the site and you know, vehicles can get around it. In general, we've designed this and consistent with the fire department's comment that we leave the driveway aisles open, we leave access around the building open, so that you know, there's certainly emergency access and for firefighting and that kind of thing. So just to complete this then, our purple area is the area here, which is towards the gravel area on lot 4. That's to be used for the storage of trailers. And then the area here, which is the gravel and the millings, is, as was discussed by our applicants, to be used for the outdoor storage of the wires, the telephone poles, and those types of things. I do want to show the landscaping here, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but hopefully what you can see in yellow is the location of our proposed 8-foot fence with the 2 gates, one being manual and one being an automatic gate. And so the point of that is to wrap this fence and really kind of enclose and protect and buffer the use here.
Can't really see the yellow here. Could you just kind of figure out where that is?
Yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? I did color it on this plan, so let me mark this one. This is sheet 3. And I'm gonna call this A7.
What, John, what site plan sheet number is the fence? Like best shown?
Sheet 3.
Great, that is great, yes.
Yeah, so in anticipation of the question, I colored this in yellow, and I think it makes it a little easier to understand. So what we're proposing to do here is basically wrap the operations and the storage with the fence. So along Voorhees Road will be the frontage. As our client talked about, we showed this about 10 feet off the curb line, but I think what we could probably do is move it in a little bit closer, maybe up to about 5 feet from the curb line. And that'll give us a little more room to get buffer between the property line, which is the right of way line, and the fence. Because what we plan to do is put landscaping on the side that faces the road. Nothing on the fence on the interior of it per se, but you know, to buffer it and provide some screening between the road and the site itself. So right over in here, you know, this is where we'll probably, you know, do a little field change if necessary, because I noticed when I was out there is some substantial landscaping over in this area. So as you come down from the interchange of Route 78, come down the hill and approach the site, the gravel area is really well buffered in this location. So we may be able to make some modifications if Mr. Finelli and Ms. Lely think it's appropriate, you know, to shorten that fence up or maybe move it a little bit so that it gives the best buffer possible. Any questions on the fence?
So there's a berm there along 173 that those lights are on. So what's your feeling about where the fence would be relative to that berm? Because obviously if it was on that berm, that'd give you a lot more height and a lot more shielding. If it was down at the parking lot level, it would give you a lot less.
Yeah, it's a good point. And what might happen, for anyone who's not been seen the site recently, the developed portion of lot one sits lower than 173. And then as you go toward lot four, part of lot four actually sits almost at the same elevation. So the elevation varies and the site is a little bit lower. So we could have some condition, if it pleases the board, to have some flexibility to provide the best buffer possible. So, it may be that in this location, the fence would be best at, 10 feet from the curb, and maybe best at 5 feet from the curb over here. So, we're showing at 5 to 10, but I think that's negotiable, and, we want to come up with the best solution.
Now, with regard to the fence, are there any issues regarding, the site distance for vehicles coming out?
Now, good question. On the plans, there is site distance. We've shown it graphically that it works. And just from a practical standpoint, we are far enough from the traveled roadway that the cars will be able to get out here and look both ways without any interference.
Including coming out of Voorhees onto 173.
Correct, yeah. We're showing a little bit of what you'll see on most intersections, the camper, the end of it. So that instead of having a point, you have to look down the point. We have a chamfered in that location. So just to wrap up the testimony on that, the landscaping is proposed essentially along the entire frontage of that. And it's, it's supposed to be tasteful landscaping, so it's not proposed to be like an arborvitae screen that looks more manufactured. The way we designed it is a mix of shrubs, evergreens, deciduous trees, so that, it really kind of looks more natural. That's the point. So there's really, as far as improvements go, that's the bulk of them. There's, as the client said, there's ongoing maintenance and there'll be some repair, and the site is tired, it needs some attention. So, safety of sidewalks, weeding, blowing out the cracks in the pavement and sealing them up, all that stuff, will be necessary to make the site, as usable and, safe.
Okay, now you mentioned that the gravel parking area had been approved in the prior variance. Which I assume you're talking about the 2014 variance, which was an expansion of a non-conforming existing use.
Correct.
I know that the extension of the building do you know, Mike, was the gravel parking lot included in that as well? Or do you?
I think it was, yeah, I know I have a copy of the resolution,
I brought this plan, if it'll help.
I think that's a reference for sure.
It's like we can, mark this.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if that was actually part of the variance or not, or whether it was part of the site plan, which was not the site, they never went forward with the site plan.
That's what I think. I think they had a site plan approval that basically had.
There was no site plan approval because they stopped and.
oh, that's right, they never finished.
It's a bifurcated application.
It's a bifurcated
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To be clear, the gravel area predates that application. We've looked at historic aerials and they go back into the early 2000s or even earlier.
So that might have been with the
Yeah, so-
Muller application, because it went from Muller to.
I think there were-
I don't have much doubt that there was gravel there
Yeah.
before that application.
Right.
It's just in terms of,
Right.
it's
So-
just, I don't know that that was an approved,
So it goes back very far. I mean, I believe that there was an 87 approval, there was a 91 approval as well. And the aerials that we've looked at take it back into, I believe, about 2000. And it's not clear because the aerial quality is not so good, whether it was even there prior to that.
But did the 87 or 91 approvals, I'm sorry, Bruce,
Right.
reference and approval specifically for that?
They don't.
when did RCD come into play, Mike?
2006. Is that right? Yeah, right, would have been 2006.
You know better than me, but so I guess the question is did the gravel exist before the RCD?
Did the gravel, okay, 608. Well, what's just before the RCD? I'm gonna say yeah, because I think the gravel goes back to when it was Hyundai, which,
Well,
or when did it go from
well,
Chevy to
it
Hyundai?
was Chevy, and then Mueller had it as Hyundai, and then Vinart had it as Hyundai.
Okay,
So, and so I think Vinard had been there for a little bit in that 2000, they'd already been there for a bit in that 2014. So, a few years before that was still Vinard, before that was Mueller, but I don't know.
I don't either.
I guess the question is, do we have, if we don't have an issue with the gravel, then we don't, but it's not, I don't think you can rely on the 2014 because there never was a
No,
cycle.
we're not claiming to rely on that. We're not. No, and it's very clear that it predates that.
If they were using that gravel lot for some primary. I mean, there's some storage of equipment and materials proposed for that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But nothing beyond that. It's not gonna be lit. It's, okay. It's not even gonna be shielded by, oh yeah, it is gonna be behind
gonna
the
be
fence.
within the
It's gonna be
fence.
behind the fence, right? I mean, it's there and it's been there. And as John, Mr. Hanson put it, it is buffered all pretty nicely from the existing vegetation. You don't really even see it. If you're coming the other way, you can, but.
And nothing they're doing is increasing the impervious coverage for that area,
That's correct.
Correct, yes.
because it's still RTD. In fact, let me ask you, if you merge the lots, which we're proposing, what happens?
From the zoning perspective?
Yeah.
Nothing,
Nothing?
other than now you have one tax lot that's in two zones. The zone boundary line does not change. So, I mean, it lends itself to the next time we maybe go to do a rezoning or reexamination or whatnot, you look at it and you say, okay, let's adjust the zone boundary line now around the whole property, because it's, you have one big lot with two different zones, so.
We did wanna make the,
Go ahead.
we do wanna make the point that we agree to merge the lots with the condition of approval if we can. What I noticed is that there's two different blocks. And I don't know if the tax assessor will allow it to be merged. They generally don't like that. And that may be the reason that it wasn't merged. But if we can, and the tax assessor agrees to, we'll merge it.
Yeah, I don't think there's legally any impediment to merging two lots just because they have two separate block delineations. I guess my talk, to kind of jump on what Mr. Finelli was talking about. So once it's merged, the property remains in two zoning districts. And hypothetically, the applicant, which was gonna be my question to Mr. Hanson, is technically responsible for showing compliance really with both zones, but they get the benefit of using the entirety of the lot as merged. So I guess my question for John, and you don't necessarily have to deal with it this second, is that when you went through at the beginning of your testimony, Mr. Hanson, the various, bulk variances and setbacks and the like, were you only looking at the lot that's either in the B2 zone or in the other zone
Yeah.
separately?
Correct.
So those numbers would certainly change if we were utilizing both lots as proposed to be consolidated, correct?
Correct.
And do you show those bulk standards as a consolidated lot on your plans?
No.
You don't, okay.
No, there's no reference whatsoever to any merger. The two lots are standalone right now as per the application.
And I will say, in the 2014 variance resolution, that mentions merging the lots as well. But since they never went forward with that site plan, then it didn't happen.
We're happy to do it if we can.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, so whose proposal is it to merge them? Is it the board's suggesting?
Well,
Or
what
since the
we're saying,
application doesn't merge them?
well,
as it
I think
stands
what the
now.
board, what Mike has said, when they let you say it, is that if they do that, it gets rid of some of the variances.
I understand that.
Both in our report and in Kendra's report, and I certainly don't want to speak for Kendra. We threw that out as a recommendation, so, I mean, they have to obviously agree to do it, but it's kind of our suggestion.
Okay, so the proposal as written though, doesn't go there.
I'm sorry, Joe?
The proposal as it's written right now, doesn't go there.
No.
We did not propose that in our initial application. But as is frequently the case, we make changes on the fly as recommended by your professionals. We're very happy to merge a lot. It's a non-issue for us.
Yeah, I think as far as the block designation goes, that's just an old line that somehow was this block limit line. It's, if you merge the lots, it's either gonna be block 39 or block 40.01. I mean, and let the tax assessor establish which one they want. That's all.
And you maintain the tax maps, I assume, as the tax engineer, so. We're speaking with the right.
I'd be surprised if there's a problem there, but you know.
Yeah, me too.
Any, are you finished?
Well, that's my engineering testimony. I was gonna get into the planning unless there are any questions on the.
Any questions on the engineering side from the board members? And I see our public has disappeared on it. So.
They've never truly, they're there somewhere.
I have one, John, for, I guess the benefit of the record, this would apply to certainly my report, but also Kendra's. We have a number of different comments. We have obviously some zoning comments and variance related comments, which you're gonna get to in a second. And then we've got more of the technical comments. You have any issues with compliance with any of our suggestions? I mean, a lot of it's been put on the record by the owner already, and so forth, that's addressed a lot of the things we suggested.
Yeah, I don't remember anything specifically other than there was a request in one of the reports to remove some impervious coverage. And maybe it was.
That was me.
With Kendra's report, so, you know, Mike, I don't think there's anything in your
Okay.
report that talked about that and that we can't. We do wanna keep. Bless you. We do wanna keep the amount of coverage that we have on the site and, you know, we can talk about that when we talk about Kendra's report.
Okay, Kendra, did you have anything else?
I do not.
Okay,
All right, so, you know, this is a D1 variance, and as the board knows, and I'm sure you've heard many times, this is, the framework is set by the Medici case, the famous land use case from the late 80s. And so that sets the framework for the positive and the negative criteria. And so the positive criteria in this case is really a two-pronged approach. So we're supposed to show, and the board is supposed to find, that the site's particularly suited for this use and that special reasons exist. And those special reasons are consistent with the purposes of zoning. And then that's the positive criteria. And then the negative criteria is to show that there's no substantial detriment to the zone plan, the zoning ordinance, or the public good if this project was approved. So it's not that, you know, a variance won't have any detriment, it's just that it rise to the level of substantial. That's really the test. So for this case here, you know, based on all of the testimony that our client put in and talked about specifically about the location and why it was so important and why they sought this out, I think speaks to the particular suitability of the site. Number one is it's in close proximity to the highways and the transportation system. That's really why this site has been chosen. And the other reason is because it's particularly suitable because it has the amount of coverage that we really need to have this operation. You need to have enough to do the limited storage that we're showing, to do the parking of the employee vehicles. It just works. Anything that, you know, is more or less doesn't really work, and that's why they sought it out. So I think really the site is particularly suitable, and mostly because of the testimony from our client. I think special reasons do exist here. I don't believe if he talked about it, but we did talk about it internally before the meeting, is they have the contract for the emergency service work for First Energy, which is, you know, in Warren County. So, you know, there is a public safety
issue here. And, by having this site in this location, close to, their client, close to the residents of Warren County, purpose A, I believe is advanced, if you approve the application. Purpose G is to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, industrial uses and open space, both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements, in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. So we are meeting the environmental requirements. As I mentioned, there's no permits that are required here from DEP. We're not really disturbing any land other than for the planting and the fence. And this is provides a location for certainly a necessary business in this area that and it's really a great adaptive reuse to this. Also, purpose H is to encourage the design and location of transportation routes that would promote the free flow of traffic. This for the same reason that was discussed by the applicant. This site gets you in and out onto the major road network without going through towns, without disrupting municipal roadways, without causing congestion and those types of things. So I think purpose H is clearly advanced. So for the negative criteria, when we look at the zone plan, we find that there's no substantial detriment. And, you know, I would rely on a couple of things. The proposed use on either lot is not inconsistent with what has been approved here since the 1980s. I mean, especially with respect of vehicle storage, service component, and employee parking, you know, these types of uses or these components of the prior use carry forth with this use. So I think that, you know, it's consistent there. And then also, the purpose of the B2 zone is to promote highway business uses or shopping centers. And it goes on and it says at the end that serve the needs of residents of the surrounding community. And that was actually a quote from the 2014 resolution. And the reason I think that was brought up as important is that, you know, this use does serve the needs of the surrounding community because of the emergency service work that they do. So I think it's consistent with that. Some of the nonconformities that are going to be mitigated by this application, I think also speaks to the getting closer to the zone plan and certainly no substantial detriment. The lighting is going to be reduced. We've agreed to bring that back as close as possible to the ordinance requirements. The buffers that Ms. Lely has talked about that are non-conforming currently on both of the Voorhees Road and 173 are going to be enhanced and brought closer into conformance with those requirements. And then signage, again, we agreed to remove the two signs. We'll have one sign that conforms with the ordinance. It'll be in a location that is appropriate size and appropriately lit so that it conforms all of your ordinance. So those are getting closer to the zone plan, and that's for lot 1. So for lot 4, you know, that's one that probably needs a little bit more discussion, you know, since that's the RCD zone. You would maybe look at that and say, well, the uses would substantially impair the zone plan and the zoning ordinance there because the RCD is very limited. But it's not the case here. And this was also talked about in the 2014 resolution. Due to its location and its character, it's not suited for uses that are approved in the RCD zone. So particularly the agriculture use, residential use. The lot has 6 acres in size. To be a residential use, you need 20 acres minimum size. You have the frontage of and the noise of the street. You have the electrical transmission towers that come through there. So it's not suitable in any way for a residential use. And from an agriculture use, we took another look at the farmland preservation plan element. This has never been a property that's been included in lands identified for farmland preservation, which is not suitable for agriculture. So I think that because it's not suitable, not even particularly suitable, but not suitable for those uses, there's no substantial detriment to keeping this commercial use, allowing this to continue and have it continue very similar like it did since the 1987. From public good, I think this is a fairly simple one. There's no substantial detriment to the public good. And what we mean by that is we look at the traveling public, from a visual standpoint and certainly from a lighting and landscaping standpoint. There's gonna be no change to the gentleman's property that is behind, I'll call it behind our site. You know, there'll be no tree removal, there'll be no vegetation destruction. So there'll be no detriments there. And there's really only gonna be enhancements. We're adding landscaping to the frontage, or probably the biggest thing is removing that unwanted lighting and bringing that down. So I find that there's no substantial detriment to the public good. Lastly, in the Medici case, there's an enhanced quality of proof, which is another level of quality, or another proof that we need to show the board, and the board needs to find. And with that is to reconcile why this use, after multiple re-examinations of the master plan, hasn't been included as a permitted use. And so I would offer a couple of things there. I think this is a very unique use. We're calling it a center of operations for electrical contracting, but it has, you know, different components in it: service, storage, employee office, and so forth. So it's not something that this type of use, being as unique as it is, that would come up in a discussion and say, well, yeah, this type of use specifically should be here. And then so from an outdoor storage standpoint, you know, you look at this and say, you know, how come, you know, outdoor storage or the limited storage we're showing should be approved here? And outdoor storage can mean a lot of different things. And your ordinance basically says bulk storage. And when I think of outdoor bulk storage, I think of landscape material, bins with mulch in them, stone, masonry blocks, and those kinds of things, which can be unsightly and really are not something that you want on a gateway type of property like you have here. But this is different. You know, this is outdoor storage that is organized, it's clean, it's not going to be in separate parts, it's going to be in, you know, the components will all be together and it'll be buffered as we talked about. So to wrap it up, and sorry to keep talking here, but based on, you know, my conclusion is based on all the testimony from the applicant and the analysis that I hope the board does between the positive and negative criteria, I think that lot 4 and lot 1 are both particularly suited for the use. I think the case meets the Medici case test. I think it's a great adaptive reuse for the site. I think it promotes the special reasons, and I think it's worthy of the approval. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
Yeah, well, I don't remember it being actually brought up, even though I talked before about it being 24-hour use, but or potential for, you know, access 24. What are the actual hours of operation day to day?
8 to 5.
8 to 5?
Yeah, he
All right, I did something.
Although the personnel that work in the shop may come in earlier, that's 5 personnel we testified, may come in at 7.
Thank you.
You know?
And if I may add, it's not to say that somebody wouldn't stay to 5:30 or 6 p.m., but the general office hours are 8 to 5.
Sounds like it. So, to me, one of the more unique things about it is the bulk storage and the fence from what we've got, so. I don't know, do we feel that we can, through landscaping and the fence and all, pretty well hide the impact of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the existing landscaping plan gets us about 60 to 70% there. I think if we can work with John's office to get some additional evergreen plantings, I think that's really gonna, the reason why, 2 things. One is, the reason why I recommended the black fence with the black slats is that will be extremely opaque, right? You won't see through that while the landscaping is growing in. So that's, but it's not the most sightly, you know, aesthetically pleasing view of a black fence with black slats, even though it will kind of recede to the background. The landscaping helps to really just enhance, break it up and provide the greenery. There are some different species of plants in there, so I think we can work with it so that it's definitely gonna be a much improved view.
And I imagine you guys kind of want to hide the stuff anyway, so you
Yeah.
don't have copper scavengers
Yeah.
running in there. So,
But yes, I'm satisfied that we can do a good job with that.
so, if we were to approve something in terms of conditions, I think I heard, you'd be amenable to working with our engineer to coming up with a a lighting plan that would meet the township requirements.
And I believe your engineer included your planner also in that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's fine.
And that you'd also be willing to work with our, I think it's just our planner on the screening.
Yep.
The landscape screening and.
So Mike,
and I- and-
Mike can be part of that too.
Well, and,
I'd be happy to look at some nice
and I
vegetation.
think possibly it might involve some fence placement in
Yes,
there as well,
Right.
Yes.
as part of it,
whether it's 5 feet or 10 feet from the curb line.
to get the,
Make sure
the
that-
best impact
Right.
of it. Any other
You
conditions?
talked about, maybe, I think Mr. Finelli suggested maybe a night lighting test after installation.
To ensure that there's no offsite spillage.
Right,
Right.
or adverse impacts to any residential neighbor. I mean,
Sure, that's fine.
And again, you said you would be amenable, presuming that you could do it to merge the lots.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And also working with the neighbor, with Mr.
Yes.
Drake, to make sure, do the best you can to, make sure that JCP&L has access, or that he or representative has access, if power goes out.
what other conditions do we have?
I think we covered the fence to provide the best buffer possible, whether it's 5 feet up to 10 feet from the curb. That you would work with, Ms. Lely and Mr. Finelli with
Correct.
regard to that.
Yep.
Right? You're gonna comply with all the reports that have been submitted in connection with this application, including the fire department report, reports of Mr. Finelli, report of Ms. Lely, unless otherwise,
Except for the impervious
acknowledged
coverage.
with regard to.
What's the issue on the impervious coverage?
I had recommended, I was just listing the impervious coverage as an existing nonconformity, and I had recommended, given, and I needed to hear more testimony, that the parking was exceeding what they needed, so if there was an ability to pull that back to be able to meet the impervious coverage, but I think twofold, they're merging the lots, so I think that helps with the overall impervious coverage calculation. So it's really a moot point. And then as well as the need for the impervious coverage for what they just testified to between outdoor storage, firefighting access, and then just what they proposed on their colored
Okay.
rendering.
So
So
that-
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good.
And then finally, Mr. Chairman, I would note that, and I alluded to it when I was questioning Mr. Hanson, because there is, as a condition of approval, a lot merger, a lot consolidation, the fact that the applicant did not specifically identify as consolidated or merged the extent of the bulk variance relief that's required for this particular application is not necessarily a concern of mine, especially given the fact that there's a D1 variance that's required here, and typically for the board's consideration, that the bulk variances would essentially be subsumed into the use or D1 variance relief in the criteria that's required for approval of the application.
I agree with your solicitor. I would add that I think the case is paleo. And I think the rationale is that when you have a use that's not a use that's permitted in the zone, it really doesn't make much sense to apply the use standards for uses that we're not talking about. We should figure out what bulk standards make sense for that use.
Although
in that
I
context.
may disagree with Mr. Frank on one aspect of it, which is that you may want to have as a condition of approval that since the condition is, one of the conditions is lot consolidation, to have Mr. Hanson provide to the board even after the fact.
A table.
A table of the variance relief as if consolidated, just so the board has, and Mr. Finelli and Ms. Lely would have an accurate, I guess, rendition of what is actually before the board.
That'd be very helpful, actually. Because you know,
That's fine.
So-
We'll do that.
the denominator of the equation goes way
Yeah.
up now,
Right.
so you will be in much better shape. They also agreed to remove some signage, so that there will now only be one building sign, is that correct? Okay.
Meeting our requirements. So what is the variance?
So the application is with the conditions, if the board is inclined to, or someone on the board is inclined to make a motion, it would be a motion for approval of a D1 use variance to permit the proposed use in the zone, subject to all the conditions that have been identified.
And do we need any, are we saying we don't need any bulk variances?
What I'm recommending is that I don't believe that because they haven't done it, the analysis as a consolidated lot, that you don't need to necessarily vote on the bulk variances. You can just vote on the use variance because that is subsumed into all the bulk variances are subsumed into the use variance, but for the municipalities' records that they should provide as a condition of approval, if the board so inclined, a zoning table identifying the various bulk standards.
Okay, because I mean, there are some bulk variances like the 74.5 feet versus 75 feet. It won't be followed.
Well, right, but that's why I'm saying that we don't know today, because as consolidated, the extent to which the bulk variances are required for this application. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair.
Although, I mean, the front yard is.
A couple of them.
A couple of them aren't gonna change.
Sure.
So do we need to say anything about that rather than give them carte blanche, as it were? Or?
If you were to recognize though that in particular as a pre-existing non-conforming, then it wouldn't be included necessarily if you chose to carve it out. And then if we wanted to build in,
Whether it's subsumed or it's pre-existing non-conforming. it doesn't
Okay.
matter. So it's up to the board if any member of the board wishes to make a motion.
Well, let me just double check. Any questions that yes.
I have a hypothetical question, not related, just for my own education. If Metro Tech was a commercial vehicle dealer and they put 100 of these and they just sold trucks, would there be any variances needed? Because it's an auto dealer? I'm just curious.
I was thinking back in my mind too.
Well, no matter, are you concerned that they can?
No, I'm not concerned, just, it's my own
Generally,
education.
Yeah.
Because it's previously an auto dealer lot, and if they, instead of selling Hyundais, they sold bucket trucks.
I think it might depend on, and I haven't researched it, it might depend on whether your ordinance distinguishes between
Whether it had a condition or
passenger
something.
vehicles and light automobiles and heavy vehicles. If it doesn't, it just says, it's automobile sales.
Good question.
Yeah.
We have different answers. Go ahead.
You have a different answer?
Well, excuse me, the B2 zone actually prohibits, auto dealership sales and rental. So it's not permitted.
But it's an existing non-conforming thing that was approved.
Right.
For that particular use, so if it
But,
changed at all, they would have to come back.
I don't know, under Stop Shop, I might not agree with you.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
I don't wanna go into weeds, I was just,
So,
my own knowledge.
okay, all right, so,
And it's a minor site plan, they wanna make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's
Okay.
my point.
so,
So it would be an application for a use variance relief along with the minor site plan, requires 5 affirmative votes for the D1 use variance.
does anybody need that spelled out any, so it's one motion?
It's one motion, unless council, you have a difference of opinion. I think it's one motion that can make either to grant the application or deny the application. And then then we'll take a roll call.
And excuse me for, go ahead, Bruce, I'm sorry.
Well, so it's really a motion for the use variance,
Correct.
and then a motion for the minor site plan approval, right?
I think that given the nature of this, it can be done together, and you should certainly start with the D1 use variance.
Okay, so we have a motion to grant the use variance,
Bruce, I'm sorry, but this, my question applies to what we're gonna do. Mr. Simon.
Yeah.
Is there any reason to take a special vote on the fence height issue and that variance? Is that being consumed or assumed?
Yeah,
With the D1, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question, Mr. Finelli. My position always in a D1 use variance case is that the bulk variances are subsumed into the D1 variance, because if you're going to deny the D1 variance, then you're not gonna be dealing with
The
the
other
fence.
stuff doesn't really matter.
However, to your point, which is an excellent one, that as the board wrestles with, and you heard the testimony from Mr. Hanson on both the positive criteria and negative criteria for the D1 use variance, that the board does need to wrestle with not only the use, but what the granting of the use means in terms of the bulk variances that are at issue, including the fence. So it's one thing to say,
Right.
the only issue is the use, and otherwise the applicant is fully conforming with all the criteria in the ordinance for bulk, including fencing. That's not the case here. That's for you to consider in your weighing of the positive and negative criteria for the D1 use variance.
But, so in other words, if we're agreeing to the variance, we're agreeing to an 8-foot fence.
Correct.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I think to just piggyback on that quickly is that the reason why there's a nexus between the D1 variance in this specific situation and the 8-foot fence. The 8-foot fence, as well as the landscaping, but the 8-foot fence is meant as mitigation for the idea that there is gonna be outdoor storage, which is not permitted. So there's a connection to that. So that's why there's a subsuming of that 8-foot fence variance into the D1. Not to give you all testimony, but that's essentially what you'd be
I
looking
think we've all learned something today.
I've never heard the word subsuming used so
so many times, right? Only-
So, everyone's clear on it, so I need a motion to grant the use variance with the aforementioned conditions. And as well as the minor site plan.
Motion.
Mark Scanary, Gary Hill, second.
And Gary. Mr. Bruce Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Mark Scuderi.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Chicala.
Yes.
Ms. Kathy Cullen.
Yes.
Mr. Joseph Fiamma.
Yes.
Mr. Gary Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Dana Parker.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And it's a pleasure to work with learned colleagues.
Oh, all right, well, we do have some other things on our agenda, if I can find it, yeah. Okay. Escrow balance. There they are. Is Stickle your new company or what is?
No, Fickle's Grill.
Oh, it's
That's Fickle, Koenig, Sutherland, and
Oh,
Grill.
okay. That's for-
No, it's UTRS, or I think it's Universal Technical, I saw on their phone. There you go, that.
So I didn't see any issues, Amy, did you on escrow? No. And I'll leave it to professional to review that if you have something coming, if it's not covered with enough money there, that you'll alert the CFO. Okay. Are there any? You have any more updates?
I have
John,
more-
John.
Yes, I'm gonna punt on that to John till the next board.
You guys do realize that there's a 3-story apartment building presumably going across the street from
Okay.
No.
There is.
Now we do.
That was my comments before about the road. about the housing going in.
Okay, where am I at? So, affordable housing is done. Next board meeting is September 14th, 2023. Amy has informed me she'll be on
I am
vacation.
not concerned, so.
Oh, we.
And Mark, I'm still on vacation in October, so.
Yep, I have that on my calendar.
Nothing on the affordable housing at this point?
Well, John's not here, that's kind of his bailiwick, so.
Can't even discuss.
Wait.
You want to share the fun.
Well, I haven't, oddly enough, I was really supposed to, expecting to see something happening behind Lowe's by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you have an update?
I sure do.
All right.
Yeah, I have been in contact on, I would say, a daily basis over the past week or so with a fellow by the name of Steve. His last name starts with a K, whatever it is, who is the construction manager for Ingham. He's in essence the Jeff Wong of the construction phase of the project.
Okay.
Very nice to deal with so far. haven't met him yet. But we are going back and forth with various things that they still need to supply us with, kind of, dot the final i's and cross the final t's. And we're looking to schedule a pre-con meeting soon. They got the county approval and they got the county to agree to allow them to start. And they wanna break ground starting in September. So it's, I would, right now, I would be very surprised if we don't see activity out there in September. Okay, is that a good update for you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
yeah.
Okay.
Although I've
That's why
heard,
you-
these-
that's why you.
I've heard these months move right along.
Well, no,
Quite a while.
they're asking for, they wanna know how much bond money you have to put up and inspection fee, so no, they're ready to roll.
Okay, with that, I'll ask for the important.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Second, Captain?
Yeah.
Eric.
I was gonna ask if anybody decided I was gonna call Joe to flip the AC on, but everybody seemed to be